So, it's not a new idea. I can't claim any great originality about this. Working with Lego has gone on for quite a few years. It's been adopted by, for example, Cambridge University. Cambridge University has a Lego Foundation, which is financed by Lego, and it's about creativity and learning in education. Based on a £4 million grant. So that's quite a significant investment of money in this idea about learning. And the basic, if you look through the Lego learning materials, the basic premise of that is that schools and universities destroy creativity. What our role is that people are naturally creative and we channel them into a series of tests and opportunities for learning that don't particularly match the way they learn or match what they're interested in. And one of the arguments is that we destroy creativity because we focus on what students do wrong. Rather than looking to their talents, we are consciously saying you're doing this wrong, and in a way we don't allow them to do things wrong, and they don't learn. So if we don't allow people to do things wrong, one of the main ways of learning, obviously, goes without saying, is the most successful people in the world are often people who've gone through disasters, but they've learned from those disasters. But equally, there's a theory that Lego kits destroy imagination and creativity as well. And if you've got kids and you go out at Christmas, you'll notice there's lots of Lego kits, but what they tend to have now is a pre-step design. So you will create a starfighter from Star Wars, for example, with Lego. And it's a very complicated kit. And the end product is already defined. So this is your task, is to recreate something someone else has already imagined. And the argument is that those sorts of kits actually ruin the creativity of Lego because they don't allow people to create things they actually want to create or they're just interested in. And what's interesting in a way with Lego kits is when people make, I don't know if you had experience of this, but when children, or more commonly their parents actually do it for them, make up the Lego kits, is that once they're made, they just sit around. Nobody ever does anything with them because they don't want to destroy it, and people don't return to them and break them up and make something new. They just gather dust somewhere. So there's an argument that Lego, these new Lego kits, which are linked to things like Star Wars, destroy creativity. Universities have used Lego before. One of the obvious methods of using Lego is in architecture schools. So they use Lego to create models of buildings. And I'm just giving you a little story here of a building, it's in Newcastle actually, the Crudders Estate used to be called. Has anyone heard of T. Dan Smith? No. So it's a housing history sort of a person from the 1960s. And he was the leader of Newcastle Council in the 1960s. And eventually he was arrested for corruption. But what he did was he created a series of tower blocks, which it turned out that he had backhanders and they built really badly. Now, it may seem a long time ago, but of course we've got Grenfell now. So it's not exactly old information, this, or just a historical consequence. What he did was he took backhanders and he built these rather bad tower blocks. And you can see him there looking at the estate there. And there he is there, he's walking, it's actually built now, it's built. And he's just walking past the estate. And there's Crudders Park, which fell into kind of disrepair and somewhere that people didn't want to live. And as I say, at the end of it, he was arrested, spent some years in prison. Meanwhile, you can see the tower block now being destroyed. It's seen as a sort of, it's like almost like you're building it Lego, smashing it up again. And there it is now, they've added a little bit, unfortunately what they've added is cladding, of course. So God knows what's gone on there. So I hope they followed the rules more than they did when they originally created it. But it's a kind of a Lego building story, but it's one of those stories got such a lovely ending that I have to share with you, is that T. Dan Smith, he was a very powerful person in Newcastle, ended up going into prison, lost all his friends, lost all his money, came out of prison, and he was rehoused by Newcastle because he had no money. And where was he rehoused? He was rehoused on the 14th floor of the block he built. Now there's justice. That's real justice. You don't often get that, do you? But there you go.
It's poetic.
Okay?
It's poetic.
It's poetic justice. But I think that's obvious, but I think Lego can be used in a more interesting and nuanced way if you use it in your lectures or in seminars. One way to think about it is that there's theories that we have different sorts of learning. We all have a particular way of learning. Some people are better at listening to things, some people are better at reading a book and coming back, some people are better at using their hands. So in theory it should apply to these what we call kinesthetic learners, people who look better learning with their hands. And in a way, you can see that, can't you? Because you sort of learn by doing things. So how do you learn to drive a car? I mean, probably most people in this room, everyone can drive a car. How do you learn to drive it?
You have to drive it.
You have to drive it. There's no other way of learning how to drive a car apart from driving a car. You can read a book about it. But of course, that's a very different skill. It's interesting that now they've introduced that test, is how many people fail the test when they're probably decent drivers, but they fail the theory test because they can't learn by just looking at books. Certainly when I learned to drive a car, it was, I remember the first lesson I had, the guy said, here's the gears, here's the gear stick, here's the brake, here's the accelerator, now would you drive the car? And I thought he was completely mad. I thought, what, drive the car? And actually what he said, this is sort of that embarrassing story, was he said, do you know how to signal? And I said, no, I don't. He said, it's quite easy to do that. And I thought, well, I've never seen anyone do that, to signal in a car. In fact, it doesn't make sense, but he's the teacher, he must know what he's doing. He said, well, so would you like to signal? So I turned to him and went like that. He said, no, there's a stick just by the wheel which you use for the indicators. You must have thought I was completely mad. This is how you signal. There's a theory that learners learn when they're engaged and when they're enjoying it. It's a bit controversial, that one. I suppose it makes sense that people learn things when they enjoy it more. But there's the other end of it, is that you can have a lecture and have a teaching session which everyone enjoys, but nobody learns anything. And I think that's the danger of the Lego one. I was a bit worried that they're probably going to enjoy it, but are they going to learn anything from this? One other way of doing it is to use Lego bricks as metaphors. Now, a metaphor is relating a difficult concept or a difficult thing to something that people understand. So when you say, doing this is like riding a horse, doing it, it's comparing what they don't know to what they know, and then using what they don't know to demonstrate and ease them into what they don't know. So you might know how to ride a horse, and you think, oh, you do it like that. Therefore, I now understand relativity. That's a bit of an extreme example. But use something, it's comparing something you don't know to something you know. But that presupposes that students already, in a sense, know the thing they don't know. They kind of know something else that's related to it that can explain it to them. And that's a bit of a stretch in terms of using metaphors. And actually, one of the problems with metaphors, which I'll come back to in teaching, is that they're very culturally specific. So when you say certain metaphors, you assume, if I say glass ceiling, you all know what it is. I don't mean anyone else knows what it is, who's from a different culture. And there's certain metaphors I've used that even I don't know what they mean. So have you heard the phrase, I'm going to squeeze them till the pips squeak? You know, heard that? Some people? I'm going to squeeze you till the pips squeak. But what does it mean? I thought, what could it possibly mean? What, pips don't squeak? I don't even understand the metaphor myself, but I employ it all the time. Lego is also used by companies' corporate events to discuss the sort of style and image of companies. But I think the thing that attracted me to working with Lego is that often creativity and thought happens when you connect different parts of your brain. Different parts of your brain suddenly link together and something happens. And I think that can work with Lego. And certainly, I don't know about you, the last idea, if you have a good idea, and I don't have that many good ideas, now and again I do, but I don't have a good idea by sitting down and thinking, right, it's 10 o'clock, I'm going to have a good idea now. What happens is you walk around, you might be walking around in the park, you see a dog, you see a tree, and suddenly you think, oh, hold on a second, I've got an idea about how to do that lecture next week. And I thought it would be useful just to get mixed groups of students so that they could collaborate and work together. The idea was to look at styles of management. I know, Joe, you've done this before with lectures, but the probably most well-known theory of management, there's some managers and leaders who are autocratic, tell people what to do. There are some are democratic, who involve people, and some are laissez-faire, they just let people get on with it. So, Lewin's theory of management. What I did with this was I said, I got the group to, actually what I did was I appointed one of them as a leader, and I gave them a briefing. The briefing paper was not shared with the group, and the briefing paper told them to do particular things as the leader of the group. What the group leaders didn't know was there were in fact different instructions for each group. So one set of instructions was to be autocratic, to tell people what to do, not to involve them, and just instruct the group what to do to build a house. The other one said, don't get involved, look at your phone and wander off. And the other one said, involve people, and try and involve people in decision making and make this together. The concept was that A, they'd be able to hold a brief, but B, just to see how the group reacted to different styles of management, whether it came out in terms of the building, in terms of the final product, they were using different forms of management leadership.